So they're above all the things. Now, a psychopath, too, really enjoys all sensations. They flourish on sensations. Whatever drug turns them on, gives them a better high. Whatever, the more weirdest, kinkiest sex they can possibly get, gives them a better high. That's what they live for, is the highs in life, and they jet all over the place to have their little orgies and things like that. But, of course, that's just the nature of the psychopath. Lower-level psychopaths have to put a better show on to the public, pretend they're one of you, but at the top, royalty, apart from the PR shots, they live a completely different lifestyle that you can ever imagine.
And really, that's what modern civilization has become, is a psychopath playground, and they've created the artificial culture, the culture creators, and more are trying to convert a large servant class over to not just do this ritually here and there, but they want to go into mass-scale war, mass-scale death. You or I would look at the video of the 3-year-old girl with her lower mandible blown off, tongue hanging out in absolute panic, and that rips our heart out, rips our guts out. But the globalists, for them, that's beautiful. That's a sensation. That is just grand. And that's why they make the joke, this is peace, ha, ha, ha. It's all about...
Well, they've done many studies with a psychopath and have wired them up to various electrical equipment to study their brain, including the electromagnetic imaging. And they can actually see what parts of the brain are stimulated or not even touched when they look at different photographs. Psychopaths don't have a horror. They don't have recoil with horror. It's gruesome pictures. There's a neutral image in the brain. Sexual things, so on, like that. Even torture might turn them on. But things which shock most people has no actual response.
Well, I believe it's healthy and normal to recoil from all that. But then there's a place in good people where I wouldn't enjoy it, but I do have a compulsion in my mind that these people need to be routed out. I'm somebody who wouldn't hurt a flea, but when I see the globalist, I have an overwhelming drive to see him hang high. And of course, that's a natural instinct. They're trying to get that out of the general public, so we'll just sit here and take it. As a father, as a human, as a warrior, as a guardian, nothing special, just a man, I have absolute, total energy, even though I'm exhausted right now just thinking about these people, to want to defeat them. And I would imagine you have that same view as well.
Oh, yeah. You understand, we have our figureheads that still have power, like Prince Charles. There's articles recently where he can actually veto or just nullify any law that's going to affect him and his personal...
In fact, let me stop you. Guys, pull up London Guardian, headline, Prince Charles offered vetoes, I think it's 50 times. But they admit, he has a loophole where he runs everything. He's the ruler, and he runs anything he wants is his. And I tell Canadians this, I go, the Queen suspended your parliament 3 times. And they go, no, you're a liar. So I show articles, and then they go, well, that's just ceremonial. But again, this is how it works. Go ahead.
Well, there's no law can be passed in any of the British Commonwealth countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Britain, even India still follows a lot of those rules because they're part of the British Commonwealth. And so no law can be passed in those countries without the final permission of the Queen. She must stamp it, basically, to pass it or nullify it. So that they're still very powerful. But they also have, again, their pals, their cousins, too, because they're interrelated with the big bankers. They're intermarried with them. I'm talking about bankers who lend to nations. And so they're intermarried with those guys, too. They're also inbred psychopaths that have been at this for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so we have... See, everything runs from the top down by money. And once you have money, you can buy everything. You buy countries, because every country is in debt. So you make sure of that by the system that you introduce. And then the guy who's in charge of money can basically say, well, I'll give you this if you want to put so much to the military, and here's a little deal. I'd like your military to attack that country over there because they haven't been paying their debts and all this kind of stuff. And this is how it really works. That's why Rothschild said, give me control of your money system, and I care not who rules the country, because he knew from previous experience that whoever rules the money rules the whole country anyway, and the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister must go to the banker for cap in hand every year for his cash, you know. So money rules, and they're, as I say, they're interbred psychopaths too. And you find the Rothschilds are intermarried with the royal families of Britain and Europe as well. So we're run by psychopaths on all levels. Some of the other ones too, by the way, it's interesting, go into the military. They just shoot up through the ranks naturally, probably hardly attended, in fact, but they end up being in charge at the top levels of military. So there you have your royal powers for ultimate laws. You have your financial industry bodies there that govern the whole finance of the whole country. They use the people like peasants for taxation to fund their wars and their loans and all the rest of it. And then you have guys at the top of the military who decide to take you off to war. So they have the little plans that really are secret plans from the public. The public's never to know the real reasons for anything, and they never do. They're never told the real reasons for any war. Or the real reasons for anything happening within their country. So psychopaths really, and I've said this, all people who are going to be in charge or given power over any citizen should be tested for psychopathy. You got to start with that, number one, that rule right off the bat. And that goes for your money system and every other system there is, because psychopaths, once they get in, they can cause so much damage so quickly. And by the way, they recognize each other. They find each other very quickly. They instantly recognize another psychopath, and they form little societies that end up ruling big chunks of the world, like the Council on Foreign Relations.
They are a cancer, and they must be routed out. They are the vampires, not physical vampires, but spiritually, and they have to be routed, or they will continue to feed on us. Look at this headline out of CBS News. Denver collects fines on drivers who stop at red lights, and if their bumper just goes 1 inch over the white line, again, but then the system can commit any crimes they want. Alan Watt is our guest right now. Jesse Ventura called me last night about the whole TSA thing and said he would try to call us after the press conference. But we'll see what happens with that. That's scheduled to happen around noon. We're going to have Alan Watt with us till 5 after. Then Jim Mars is going to be popping in and look at the banking and the whole world, the wars that are coming up and the rest of it. I want to go to Lauren, Patrick, John Lee, and Chantel and others that are wanting to talk to Alan Watt. But just briefly, Alan, what's your view on this whole Iran situation?
Well, I was pretty certain that of how geopolitics was going to run this one, and it has turned out this way. I knew that Israel would... You see, Israel... if you read the old newspapers from Israel, you'll find that for the New American Century put out their list of countries they wanted to just take down. They had Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, they had Libya, they had Iran, Egypt, etc., all on the list. And of course, Obama is just following the same list. He was even congratulated by Rumsfeld for doing so. And but Israel kept telling the U.S. and the Israeli papers, don't stop at this country, keep going. They were really ticked off that the U.S. wasn't going through them all one after another. They had these long pauses in between. So this time I thought, well, Israel will have to, for the appearance's sake, and that's for her appearance's sake, Israel will come up and stand up and say, we're going to attack. And then the media will come out and say that's putting pressure on the U.S., who doesn't want a full-scale attack on Iran. And therefore, they'll step up the sanctions, they'll step up, they'll take over. And that's exactly how they're playing it out. They get Israel to come out first with a threatened strike on Iran, and the U.S. will step in saying, we're the protector, we'll handle that. And then the U.S. takes the blame, pays the cost of it, financially and in blood as well. And that's the whole region then cleared. There's only one dominant country to be allowed in that whole region that was decided and talked about before they even set up the State of Israel. So you're simply watching a very old plan work out on time, on cue, the way that they planned it.
Yep. Let's go ahead and talk to John in Wisconsin. John, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hi. It's a real pleasure to speak to you guys. Obviously, InfoWars, Prison Planet, and Cutting Through the Matrix, they're daily visits for me and most of the audience out there. So, I mean, that's about as high a praise I can offer.
Thank you.
I kind of want to change the subject just a little bit. I saw this movie recently about Lyme disease and just how it's spreading all over the place, and the fact that there's a real ignorance as far as, you know, how to treat the disease. And it seems like the medical establishment, through their publishing and through all their indoctrination, have all these doctors under wraps, you know. And I kind of wonder if they have it as like this giant, you know, roving horde of, you know, infected deer and infected ticks that they're controlling through the DNR. And I mean, how integrated is all this?
Well, we know Lyme disease is pretty much on record. Deer swam from Plum Island over to New York. It's less than a mile. Deer do that. And it was a zoological weapons base. They brought Nazis over there after World War II. It's on record. And so Lyme disease is a souped-up, weaponized system. And, yeah, it's all part of their degenerative disease weapon program. And then they just shelve and then don't cover under insurance all the real treatments for things. Alan?
It's actually older. It was invented in Canada during World War II. And there's a good book out there. It's called Deadly Allies, Canada's Secret War. Canada has led the field in bacterial and viral warfare during and since World War II.
Yeah, I knew about that, but the word I got, but the main spread point they said was they particularly weaponized it even more at Plum Island.
Yeah, they sent it down to Plum Island in the States to be worked on, and the vector that they chose was, of course, at the time it was ticks. They dropped it from planes at one point across the western part of Canada onto deer herds to see how it would spread, and then it spread amongst the populations. And then eventually, of course, they've actually weaponized it now. It's been in the papers in Canada that mosquitoes can carry it now as well.
So they're just going to dole out all this in a loving way to kill you and your family, your children. You know, they love degenerative diseases. So it's another little loving goody-good. Do you want to add anything else, John?
Do I add a little bit?
All right, stay there. We're going to come back. The government loves you. We find ourselves at PrisonPlanet.tv subscriptions, sponsors, book sales, videos. But, you know, we're selling books for $5 a piece. And that's what it basically cost us to have them. Well, not basically. It actually costs more than that. Which, like, say, Mark Dice's book. Or when we're giving out, selling the bumper stickers at cost, you know, it just doesn't fund things. And so pure capital expenditures allowing us to continue and grow. It's thanks to you, and thanks to folks donating at InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. That's InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. We've also got a lot of one-of-a-kind memorabilia and stuff up at the eBay account. That's on the bottom of InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. You can donate there on the side, or you can buy books, videos, get a free trial subscription at PrisonPlanet.tv, and then keep the subscription in 15 days. Again, we just couldn't do any of this without you and all of our great AM and FM affiliates as well. Be sure and support them and local sponsors. Okay, finishing up, John, on the loving Lyme's disease, which you can go research, is a bioweapon, and it's just all part of the nastiness of the globalist.
Do either of you guys know if there's like a correlation between chronic wasting disease and Lyme disease? Is that sort of the same condition, or?
Yeah, there's all sorts of little carrier weapons they can put into ticks and other systems. And now Bill Gates has said they're releasing the mosquitoes that are genetically engineered. They'll put whatever they want in them, and they're going to give it to you. And that's the way it is, because he's smiling and dances around, and we're all trained. If it's an authority figure, they can kill us. And that's just how it works. You know, They
want to control the hinterland so that, you know, any rebels that are gathering will just die of some kind of disease because they've been infected.
It's even more than that. You're on the right track, though. There's been a big scare here a few years ago, and where I am, at the whole northern area, and they tried to say that not just Lyme's disease, but also the various other diseases spread by mosquitoes was on the way, and they had everybody terrified. People were wearing full jackets of the mesh, you know, the mosquito mesh. Even gardeners were wearing them. They were terrified.
Hey, it's even in mainstream news, Alan, interrupt you, because you were that West Nile came out of a government weapon program. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and that kind of fizzled away, that one. and terrify people too. But you start to get the impression it's just not safe to live in the country anymore. And of course, what they'll do, and what they have been doing, is say, well, we can actually spray and keep down the mosquitoes around cities, but we cannot, of course, spray outside of the cities, etc., etc.